We so often take for granted just how intricately our bodies and the plants all around us actually operate to keep everything running smoothly. But today, we're jumping right into this explainer to demystify exactly how living organisms function. We're going to visualize complex life process mechanism steps, mapping them out step by step. We're looking at everything from how a single leaf captures sunlight, all the way to how you digest your lunch, extract energy from it, pump that energy around your body, and, well, finally clean up the waste. It's this highly coordinated, incredible energy journey, and by visualizing these steps, the whole shebang becomes just incredibly clear and logical. So here's our roadmap for the journey. First up, the energy of life, photosynthesis. Second, we'll tackle the digestive system of food. Third, respiration, which is all about releasing that energy. Fourth, the heart's double circulation. And finally, waste removal, urine formation. Let's trace exactly how energy is created, consumed, transported, and ultimately expelled. All right, part one, the energy of life, photosynthesis. We have to begin with the ultimate source of all biological power, visualizing how plants actually capture the sun's energy to kickstart the entire food chain. Photosynthesis really breaks down into three precise, super logical events to manufacture glucose. Step one is all about capturing the raw power of the sun. The green pigment, chlorophyll, acts almost like a tiny solar panel and absorbs that light energy. In step two, this light energy is converted into chemical energy, and water molecules are quite literally snapped apart into hydrogen and oxygen. And hey, fun fact, that oxygen is actually released through the leaf's tiny pores, called stomata, purely as a byproduct. Then in step three, we have reduction. Now, reduction is just a fancy chemical term for adding hydrogen. The hydrogen from that split water joins up with carbon dioxide to form a carbohydrate, specifically glucose. It's a beautifully mechanical, step-by-step sequence. Moving right along to part two, the digestive system of food. Let's transition from how plants make their food to exactly how the human body processes ours. Think about the chronological journey of your last meal. It goes from the exact moment you salivate in your mouth, right down to the final absorption by these tiny finger-like villi in the small intestine. It obviously starts in the mouth, where your teeth mechanically crush the food, and saliva mixes in. Now, saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase, which instantly starts chemically converting complex starches into simpler sugars, like maltose. Next stop, the stomach. Down there, gastric glands release gastric juices heavily featuring hydrochloric acid, or HCl, to create this super acidic environment, along with an enzyme called pepsin to start breaking down proteins. And thank goodness there's mucus coating the stomach, or that harsh acid would actually digest our own inner lining. Finally, the food enters the small intestine. This is the main event, the site of final digestion, aided by bile from the liver, which emulsifies large fat droplets into smaller ones, plus some pancreatic juices. Then, those tiny villi massively increase the surface area to absorb all those final nutrients directly into your bloodstream. Now, what's really fascinating here is that form strictly follows function. This perfectly explains why a plant-eating cow needs a much longer digestive tract than a meat-eating tiger. Think about it. If you're an herbivore eating a plant-based diet, you're taking in a lot of cellulose. Cellulose is incredibly tough. It takes a significant amount of time to break down. So nature literally equips herbivores with a longer small intestine just to provide that necessary extra processing time. Carnivores, on the flip side, are eating meat, which digests way more readily. Because of this, they simply don't need that extended intestinal length. It's an absolutely perfect example of biological adaptation based entirely on the underlying mechanism. Okay, part three. Respiration, releasing energy. Digestion just gives us the raw fuel, right? Respiration is how we actually burn it. By visualizing the specific three-step mechanism, you can literally track how a glucose molecule is physically snapped apart to fuel your every single movement. And it doesn't even matter if we're talking about a human, a plant, or just a tiny yeast cell. The very first step always happens in the cell's cytoplasm. Here, the 6-carbon glucose molecule is broken down into a 3-carbon molecule called pyruvate, releasing just a little bit of energy. From there, how step 3 actually plays out depends entirely on one absolutely crucial factor, whether or not oxygen is present. This comparison completely clarifies why dancing way too hard at a wedding leaves you with awful muscle cramps. Let's look at aerobic respiration first. This is your body's highly efficient preferred route. When plenty of oxygen is available, that pyruvate enters the cell's mitochondria. It's completely broken down, yielding a massive amount of energy, along with carbon dioxide and water. But what happens when you're exerting yourself so hard that your skeletal muscles literally cannot get oxygen fast enough? Well, your body triggers anaerobic respiration as a backup. The whole process stays in the cytoplasm, and because oxygen is missing, the pyruvate is converted into lactic acid, which yields much lower energy. That sudden buildup of lactic acid in your muscles is the exact thing causing those painful physical cramps. Moving into part 4, the heart's double circulation. Now that we have all this energy and oxygen, we've got to transport it, which brings us to the dual pump system of the human heart. Let's use a fantastic little memory trick called the Lord rule to effortlessly separate the heart's functions without getting mixed up. LORD, left oxygenated, right deoxygenated. Honestly, it is just that simple. The left side of your heart exclusively handles blood that is rich in oxygen, while the right side exclusively handles blood that's been depleted of oxygen and is now carrying carbon dioxide. A thick muscular wall called the septum keeps these two types of blood strictly separated. And here's another rule of thumb for you. The top chambers, the atriums, are always the receivers of blood coming into the heart. The bottom chambers, the ventricles, well, they're always the ones pumping blood out. So let's trace this transit map for just a single drop of blood heading out to nourish your cells. We call this double circulation because blood actually goes through the heart twice in one complete cycle. Step 1, fresh oxygenated blood leaves the lungs. Step 2, it enters the receiving chamber on the left side, the left atrium, via the pulmonary vein. Step 3, it drops down into the left ventricle, which then powerfully pumps it out. Step 4, it travels through the massive aorta to be distributed to every single part of your body. Once your tissues grab that oxygen and dump off their carbon dioxide, that newly deoxygenated blood heads right back to the right side of the heart to be pumped back to the lungs, starting the entire cycle all over again. To wrap up our circulation mechanics, we have to look at the architectural differences between our high-pressure outbound highways and our low-pressure inbound return routes. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Because the heart just gave that blood a massive, forceful pump, the pressure inside them is incredibly high. Therefore, arteries need thick, highly elastic walls to withstand that force without bursting. Veins, on the other hand, carry blood back towards the heart. By the time blood actually reaches the veins, the pressure has dropped significantly. Because the pressure is so low, veins don't really need those thick walls. However, they do have a genius design feature: internal valves. These valves are absolutely crucial because they prevent that slow, low-pressure blood from flowing backwards due to gravity. Finally, part 5, waste removal, urine formation. Any functioning machine has to clean up its exhaust, leading us to the purely mechanical filtration system of the kidneys. By breaking down nephron function into these 3 distinct phases, the incredibly complex process of blood purification becomes as logical as, well, sorting your recycling. Inside our kidneys are millions of microscopic filtration units called nephrons. Step 1 is glomerular filtration. Blood rushes into a tiny tuft of capillaries, and sheer high pressure forces the liquid and smaller molecules out, creating an initial filtrate. But wait, we can't just throw all of that away. That brings us to step 2, selective reabsorption. As this fluid travels through the nephron's winding tubule, our body selectively pulls back in the good stuff it still needs, like water, amino acids, glucose, and essential salts. Finally, step 3 is secretion, where extra unwanted waste products are actively pushed out into the tubule. What remains is urine, which travels down the ureters to the bladder, ready to be excreted. To wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought experiment that reveals just how profoundly fragile this entire biological flowchart truly is. What would happen if all green plants just completely disappeared from the earth? Think about it. The absolute first step of energy capture halts. Herbivores starve. Carnivores lose their prey. Every single mechanism of digestion, respiration, circulation, and excretion we just visualized vanishes. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Just how vulnerable are our own intricate life processes to a single missing link in the chain? Keep that in mind the next time you see a simple leaf catching the sunlight.